Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this Altium 365 onboarding presentation. My name is John Watson. I'm going to be a presenter today. It's a real pleasure to have you here. We have a lot of information to go through in this presentation, so let's get right into this. Altium 365, you've probably heard about it by now, wondering what it's all about. Well, you're at the right spot at the right time, as they say. Altium 365 is the first ever built-in cloud-based infrastructure platform that, number one, connects through your AD subscription. So there's nothing more to download or install or anything like that. It's already a part of your Altium platform and a part of your Altium system. It's just a matter of activating it and starting to use it. Now, Altium 365, as you'll find out, will become a central location for, number one, your design resources. Now, these would be such things as, first off, your components, your component library, and we'll talk more about consolidating that later on. But your design resources as your component libraries, and also then your templates, such as your schematic templates or your project templates, or your document templates. Now, keep in mind that you also then have your resource templates, which would be such things as your layer stacks or different things like that. It's also a good place to store then your preference files and things like anything that you would want to, let's say your preferences or your settings or different things like that. Anything that you're right now saving locally, you can save on Altium 365. The next thing is it will become a central location for your PCB design projects, also ECAD, MCAD collaboration, and also then the design outputs for fab and assembly. And we're going to look at most of these items today, except for probably the ECAD, MCAD, and take a deeper look into this. But this will be, A365 will become that central location for everything you need for your design. The main focus, though, of A365 is to work from anywhere, connect with anyone. Now, what I'm about to say might surprise some of you, but Altium 365 does not require a license. Now, in the past, what has happened is you were issued a number of licenses, and once those licenses were used, no one else could get into the platform. Well, with A365 and having no licenses, you can invite as many people as you want now into your design process. Now, that could be internal people or external, as you're going to see. So this is a really exciting tool. It kind of gives you a new paradigm on how you're going to be doing projects and the number of people that can be involved in that process. Now, let's look at how to activate your workspace. This would be your first step here. Now, I will remind you that there is only one workspace per company. So once you create this workspace, that becomes your company-wide workspace, okay? Now, a common question that comes up is, what happens if my AD license subscription lapses? Do I lose all that data and everything I put into A365? Of course you don't. That all stays right there in A365, but it will become read-only. So just keep that in mind. And probably the best practice here is not to let those AD license subscription lapse on you, okay? So let's look at how to activate your workspace. If you go into Altium up at the top right there, you'll see Not Connected. And if you click on that, it will actually bring you into and open up the Activate Workspace panel there, and then into the information panel to activate your workspace. So just some basic information that's needed here. Number one is, what are we going to be calling the workspace? We do suggest you use your company name here. In the future, you may be invited into other workspaces and different things like that. You want to be able to easily identify your workspace, okay? So there's no confusion. Now, the next question is where do you want to set up your workspace? There are 4 locations right now: Europe, Asia, US East, and US West. We suggest you use the location that's closest to you and your team, and that simply gets dropped in there. And if you are setting this up for the first time, we do suggest you use the sample data. And what that will do is actually will show you a great structure of how to organize your workspace and get it started off on the right foot, okay? So after that, it's just a matter of hitting activate, and it will take a couple minutes to finish activating and setting up that workspace. But when it is done, it will actually tell you that your workspace is now successfully activated, and it will open it up for you here. This is Altium 365. Welcome to it. This is a great, I will tell you right off the bat, this is a great format on this. And one of the very first times I used A365, I was actually sitting in an airport of all places on a tablet, of course, that didn't have Altium, but I was able to do everything I'm about to show you, which was really exciting. So let's see exactly what we have here. Number one is we have a great getting started page. So this will give you a lot of great training videos, different things like that, a place to register for upcoming webinars and all that, those great details. And so I would actually recommend to come in here and visit this periodically and just see what new materials, new content has now been put up here. The next section below here, we have our project area. And I'm going to come back to this and go a little bit deeper, but this is where your projects would be stored. Then right below there, then we have our components. Now, this I consider to be the heart and soul of Altium 365. It is now going to be a central library for your entire team to work from, and which is really nice because now everybody will be working from that same single source of truth, as they say, okay? Now, right below there, we then have the MCAD Co-Designer. Now, if you don't do anything else with A365, do this. This is a really, really phenomenal tool. If you're right now creating 3D step files and attaching them to emails and mailing them to your mechanical team, you can stop doing that today. It takes all of 10 to 15 minutes to set this up. And what you do is you download and install an MCAD plugin that will then integrate SolidWorks, PTC Creo, Autodesk Inventor, or Autodesk Fusion 360 in to Altium, which is really nice because then what you'll be able to do is push and pull your PCB design back and forth between the Altium platform and these mechanical platforms. This is really nice, and you will not have to create 3D step files again and attach them to emails. Right below there, then we have the workspace members, and this is where you would add or edit your members list. Then right below there, we have then the administration area. Now, the admin area. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about this section, but I do want to point out a couple things. Number one, there is a general area here that you can actually change the workspace name or the server address or the description or anything like that. The only thing you cannot change here is your server location, okay? So just be aware of that, that is a fixed location for you, but you can change all the other information. The other thing I wanted to point out was that there's also a data cleanup area. Now, if you started your workspace with the sample data, this is a really convenient area to come in here, select all that data or the information that you want to remove and go ahead and delete that. Right below there then is the trash bin where basically anything that you have deleted, except for this stuff here is stored, okay? So right there, you can actually see some items I've got to empty out of my trash bin right here. So let's go back up to our projects here. So let's go a little bit deeper and see what we have. The best way I can describe Altium 365 to you, it is a viewer on steroids, okay? And we have some really great, we have source documents up here. We also, let's kind of walk through this. We have, first off, our schematic, sheets of our schematic. We can actually zoom in or select one of these. Maybe zoom in, zoom out, look at all the details. If we wanted to know the details on the specific component, we can actually come in here, look at the detail, the parameter information, the sourcing, the part choices, all that great stuff here. We can also even click on a wire here. It tells us what the net name is. Great details are on this part in this section here. Now, up here, we have some really nice search features where, let's say I'm looking for a specific component, let's say C10. I can actually click on that and zoom right into it and see immediately all the details regarding this component, all right? Once again, all the part choices that are available, the parameter information, and so on. So you can also do that with your net name. So let's say I'm looking for a specific net. I can do a search on my nets here. And let's say I'm looking for that back current MB. Well, there it is right there. So I can easily find information. Now, what is really convenient here is I can come into my design either by page or whatever, and I can leave comments. Now, remember I told you the main thing is about working from anywhere, connecting with anyone. And here I'm able now to actually collaborate with my team by saying place comment. let's say clicking on this, and I can then leave the comment. Let's check the temp range on this guy, for example. Now, if I use the @ sign, I can actually assign this to a specific person on my team. Now, this is nice because this will then be added to their task list as a task on this project. All right, so this is really, really convenient, and it's really nice to be able to start collaborating. Now, this whole commenting area of Altium 365 is a really powerful area. Think about all the communications that go on in a PCB design, right? Now, my question for you is this: how do you capture that right now? Right now, you're probably putting your design up on a screen for the engineers to look at, probably a room full of engineers, right? And you throw out probably what I consider one of the more dangerous questions to ask, and that is, so what do you think, right? And that's a really dangerous question. And because they'll do what they do best, they'll engineer, right? And my question is, though, how do we capture that right now? So a lot of times we'll come in and we'll look at the circuit and we'll use another program or another platform, we'll call it, and we'll capture that information. We'll do Slack or emails or a Word document or Excel or something like that. And what you'll be able to now do is actually walk through your design and leave the comments directly on the item or on the specific area of a schematic that you need to cover. All right, this is really, really convenient. Now, these comments and collaboration actually becomes a part of the history of the project itself, okay? So this is really, really nice, and you can easily come in here and leave those comments in, and those now become tasks, which now gets more into the project management side of your design, okay? So this is really convenient to work with these design comments and things like that. I'm sorry, let's go back here for a second. But here we then also have the PCB design. All right, so here we can actually come in and select different layers that we would like to see on the 2D view of the design. We can also leave comments on this part, on the PCB. We can easily just go ahead and select a component or any item here and just leave that comment right here in the design itself. Now, we also then have a 3D view of the board, which is really nice. It has that great 3D view that everyone's come to enjoy with Altium, right? Well, not to be left out, you can also leave comments in your 3D view, all right? The last source document is your BOM area. Now, this is really convenient because now think about the fact that you're bringing other people into the design process. One of the first people that I would bring in is my procurement person to say, will you check our BOM, right? Now, what's nice about this is they can also then place comments directly in the BOM side of this design. Now, this is really nice and something that is now really going to kind of encourage your collaboration with the team and really kind of streamline your design process because of that. Now, the question's been brought up is, are we looking at other source documents? Yes, we are. We right now are going to be releasing Draftsman documents into this platform so that you'll then be able to comment and view your fabrication, your assembly drawings. That can all be done in A365, okay? Now, over here we have the release area. Now, we'll show you how this works here later on in the demo. But here also then we have our history. Now, what's nice about this is this actually captures every step of your design process. Now, here we actually see when the project was created down here. And every time this is saved to the Git repository, it gives you a new panel, and then what it does is it compares it to the previous time that you committed. And it will actually then show you all the differences and the changes that have occurred on this design. Now, this is really nice. This is actually your development history here. This here then is your release history, and I'll show you how that works here in a bit. Then let's say you're going back into your development history. There's, to make some corrections or different things like that. You can easily just continue the same project here and do another release. Now, these little purplish ones here, these are actually your MCAD collaboration. So this is nice because now we're kind of expanding this out to include your MCAD designers into this collaboration. But this will actually capture any of that collaboration between you and the mechanical team also. So this is really kind of a really great a single point of collecting all this history and all the activity that goes on in the design itself. Okay. Now, that is Altium 365 in a nutshell right there. Very kind of a basic system platform, all right, which is nice because remember, you're maybe bringing other people in that may not be familiar with Altium or the platform or anything like that. So this is a really nice way of bringing them into the project, okay? So let's actually start using this. One of the first things I want to do after creating my workspace is I want to come up here and add team members, okay? So here I want to go ahead and say invite workspace member. And one of the very first things I want to do is just go ahead and invite Ben, an engineer that I work with. I just drop his email in here. I could make him an administrator or not. I won't do that here. But a little warning about him being outside of my organization. That's fine. Now here, what will happen is he will, first off, he'll be added to my list here, like you saw. And what happens is he will then get an email inviting him into the workspace. Now, if this was Ben's first time into Altium, he would actually ask to register with a password and a username, and that will then become his Altium Live account. Okay, so he will actually have his own login and password to get into this platform. All right, so very easy to add in team members. The next thing I would like to do is go ahead and get my first project into A365. So here we have a single page schematic and PCB, very simple. But as you can see, it's not in version control or in the workspace or anything. You can see I'm logged into my workspace up here. So what I do is I simply right click and I say make project available online. Now this will give it a project name. By default, put it in a version control. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK here. All right. So here it's going to first be put into the Git repository right there, and then uploaded into my A365. There we go. All right. So very, very easy process to do that. All I need to do now to go over to my workspace from Altium is hit this little globe here. This will then go back into my workspace. And I see here under my project area, there we go. We have this new DVI level shifter and the view of the PCB, the screenshot of the PCB itself will come up here in a few minutes. Okay. So, excuse me. So it's very easy to get team members in and to get your first projects up here. So a very, very easy process to get started in A365. So what I want to do here is I actually want to walk through an entire design project with you. And I want to show you where you can start using A365 in this process, okay? So I'm going to come up here to hit File, New, Project. Now, automatically, you see here that I've actually opened up my resources I've got on my Altium 365 platform. Here, I can see my workspace. I can see then what would be my project template here. And what I can easily do is just go ahead and drop in my MCU. Let's call this the MCU PCB project. And we can just say, let's give it a unique, we could put a little number there and say create. Now, what this will do is actually, first off, create my project based on my project template, which I stored in A365. And it will then put it in version control in the Git repository, and it will also upload it into A365. So very easy process to create a new project. Now, of course, from here, you would rename these maybe or different things like that. So there are some other steps here. Okay, I'm just kind of skipping over. But what I want to do is I actually want to share this project. Now, I'm working with a contractor, let's say, on this project, and I want to invite him into, I don't want to invite him into my workspace. So what I want to do is actually simply share this project with them. So here I can either hit the right click and share, or there's a convenient share button up here. Now, what I can do here is I actually can take a snapshot on the web and generate a link. and send that link to individuals, but it's only good for 48 hours and the commenting is not available. All right, so there's some limitations here. Now, what I want to do is simply share this project with Fred, a firmware guy that I'm going to be working with. Now, I also have another level of security here. And what I can do is I can actually open this up and I can say, I want to give Fred the ability to just view the project or to be able to edit it. Now, this is nice because let's say there are going to be individuals that you just want to show the project to and not to have them go in or move anything or touch anything, okay? So here I'm going to give Fred editing rights. I'm going to say, welcome to A365. This is the new project. And say, oh, and we're going to share this. Now, what happens here is Fred will get an email, just like Ben earlier, and he will then be invited into the workspace. All right, so I have a view into Fred's email here. And you can see here is the invite into the MCU PCB project. And welcome to A365 new project. All right, now he can actually go ahead and open this in A365. And I want to kind of show you something here. This is nice because you can see here, he now can see the project. Nothing to see yet. It's blank schematic PCB and such. But what I want to show you is that if I go back one level, and let me just, right now I'm signed in as myself. I want to go ahead and sign out. I want to sign in as Fred here. And I want to show you what he would see, all right? This is exactly what he would see. He wouldn't see any of my other projects or anything like that. He would see just this platform, and you see down here projects that are shared with him, all right? So just this single project, okay? So that's all he has access to because I simply shared this project. I didn't invite him into my workspace, okay? So if I go back to Altium here, I can actually begin to work on my schematic here. And what I want to do is open my Altium 365 library by going to panels and components. And here we go. And there we go. We got our components right here. Can easily bring them up. And what I can do is go and search for the component I'm looking for based on, let's say, by category or family or subfamily or whatever I'm looking for here. I can also open up my filter button. So if I have, let's say I'm looking at my capacitors, for example, I can open this filter button and look at all the different details of the components I have and drill into this information and find exactly what I'm looking for very easily and very quickly. All right, so I know, for example, I need a pick for this design. So if I did a search on my entire library, I can easily do that too. I have a 1503 here that works for me. So what I can do is there's a couple ways of handling this now. All right, so I can easily come in here and just drag and drop components. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get one component in my design. Now, if I know I need more than one of these, right click and say place. Now what this does is it places your entire system in place mode. And it's just going to keep placing these as long as I click away here and until I hit the escape key. Okay. So very simple to lay components down. So kind of be thinking, well, do I need more than one of these? If you do, then lay it down. It saves you a lot of time then when developing your schematic. All right. So now this is my first resource. All right. And if I cannot find the component I'm looking for, I immediately go over to my manufacturing parts search area. And what this does is ties you into the manufacturing parts search, which is basically the Octopart library. All right. So this is really, really convenient. You'll see here that this is I hate to place a number on this, but there is probably about close to 750,000 components in here in this library now. A really, really phenomenal resource for you. And you can see here, it's broken down by categories, and you have your families and subfamilies, really real well organized library. So let's say I'm looking, you can actually drill into the library here. Let's say I'm looking at my passives. I can easily come up here and hit my filter button. And once again, drill into the information, find out exactly what I'm looking for. Now, I know, for example, we need a Wi-Fi for this design I'm working with. So let's hit Wi-Fi and let's do a search on this. And this is actually how I would use this platform. So I don't have this component in my A365 library. So I come over to my manufacturing parts search. I can drill in, let's say I'm looking for that 2.5 gigahertz and say, okay, yep, this guy will work well for me. So what I could do is I could drag and drop this if it has the green icon model here. So I could drag and drop this. Now, keep in mind, the manufacturing part search is a read-only library. So you can't change this in any way. All right. So a better option for you would be to right click and say save to my workspace. All right. So what it's going to ask me is where do I want to put it? And I'm going to say the integrated wireless section here. And what it's going to then ask me is what information do I want to bring in? So here I simply say all the parameter information. I'm going to bring my symbol, my footprint, and all the other the data sheets and examples here. So great. All right, so it hit OK, and there it goes. It's opened up my component here. And now this is where I could actually change this component. So let's say I have a company part number that I want to apply to this component. I can easily go ahead, put that name of that in there, and I can just simply put the value of that there. And I can also then edit the symbol, footprint, whatever else I would need. So from here, I just simply go ahead and hit save and save to the server. And this will now transfer this component from the manufacturing part search library into my A365 library. So what you should do here is look at using the manufacturing part search library as like your secondary library. All right. It's very, very convenient to have that resource available to you. Okay. So that is a huge benefit to you and your company. And there's also some other benefits here. Just let me point out to you that in here, you also have some really great information panel for your manufacturing part search that will tell you a lot of great details here of the component itself, but also a lot of times you'll have alternates down here that are available for the replacement of this component. So this is going to be really convenient for, let's say you have a part shortage or there's a change in the procurement of a component, different things like that. You can easily go into your manufacturing part search, pull up this component, look at your alternates, and determine exactly then a replacement for that component. Okay, so really powerful tool here in this manufacturing part search area. So here I am, I've got my component. Now, if I go back into my A365 library, I can actually go into, let's say, my wireless section here. I see that ESP, the one that we just moved from the manufacturing part search. I can now put that into my design. Okay. So before I get too excited here, I want to go ahead and hit save to server and hit OK here. And this actually now will update everybody's on my progress. Okay, so this is really nice because now it becomes a collaborative tool in real time with with the design process. And if I open this up in Fred's view, basically, you can give it a second here. You can he can then see that the new visualization is being created, okay, because I just pushed this, but he can easily, this is nice because now if both of us are on the platform at the same time, he can tell when I've just made an update, okay? So right here, he can now see these components, he can see the details, what I've already done. Now here's where commenting really becomes nice, okay? Because he can come in here and say, well, you know, I worked with this component before. I've seen some issues or problems with it, whatever it would be, right? And he can say, you know what, let's replace this with the PIC 1824 instead, all right? Let's do that. And then also he could place comments anywhere he would want on the design, right? So let's say he wants to put out a common comment to everybody, say, oh, by the way, let's make sure we use the same Molex connector we did on the previous design. Okay, so this is nice because what he can now start doing is he can start posting these comments wherever he would want in the design, either in the schematic, PCB, 3D view, or the BOM. All right, and what happens is on my side is I start seeing these bubbles pop up and I say, oh, okay, so Fred's online, he's now collaborating. He says, okay, let's replace this with an 1824, the 1824 PIC. Okay, now what would be an option here? I could go into my manufacturing part search for this component and save it to my workspace. Well, another way of doing this is I could create a component from scratch. Now, this is just another way into my manufacturing parser, just so you're aware. Nothing secretive about that. It's just another way into my manufacturing parse search, and it will use that same resource to create my component for me. So if I hit up here, File, New, Component, it's going to ask me, first off, where I'm going to put this new component. I'm going to say Processors here and say, okay. Now, here it starts with a blank sheet, and all it's going to do here is ask me for the information that I should start with, okay? So here, I simply start putting in the part number, for example, and I can leave the end of it off there, and it will then give me my options for what components are available, okay? So here is that EST I'm looking for. It's going to ask me what information I want to bring in. I want to bring all the parameters in, schematic symbol, and the footprint. Now, a little comment here regarding about footprints, all right? As your library grows, you may not need to bring in these footprints each time. You may already have the TSOP 14-pin component as your footprint in your library. So just don't arbitrarily just hit OK here. Kind of think about if this information is needed, because what will happen here is you'll actually end up with duplicate footprints then, okay? So be kind of careful in that little section there, but okay. Now what happens is we'll actually open up that 1824 pick for me, and give it a second here. I have noticed that when I'm broadcasting on Zoom, my system does slow down a little bit. So here you go. We have our component now. It's opened it up. And from here, it's just a matter of hitting Save to Server. And I will actually be able to create a brand new component in my A365 library. Now, I will tell you, this is the best scenario that I've shown you here. It may be that your component doesn't have your model. So kind of keep this in mind. This is only like a first stage of your component creation. You may need to create your schematic symbol or your footprint. And what I would recommend in that is to look at your schematic symbol wizard and your footprint wizard. That would be my next option. And then if I can't do it with those wizards, I would actually then look at manually creating a schematic symbol and footprint, okay? So just kind of keep that process in mind, all right? So if I bring my library back in here, I can actually look into my processors, and I can see here, let's do that search on pick again. And I can actually identify that I've now got two of them on my library here. So I got 1824 and the 1503, okay? So I can easily go ahead and just drop this into my design and delete this guy and reply back to Fred. That's now been done. Now, Fred actually has a decision to make at this point, all right? Because now he sees that this is now finished. It's a resolved issue, and he could come in here and delete this comment. Now, I don't recommend deleting comments, all right? Keep in mind, these comments are actually a kind of a capturing of your design process. So, and all these activities that have occurred during it. So I would say he should resolve this, all right? So this will actually gray this out and will drop it off the active list of my task, okay? So there is this other issue here regarding, if I clicked on this, I can see the comment, okay, let's make sure to use the Molex connector we did on the previous design. Okay, now what would be an option here? I could once again go into the manufacturing parts search, but what I want to do is show you how to import an entire library. Now, most likely, this will be the way that you begin and create your libraries. Once you set up your library in A365, you want to go ahead and import the libraries that you've already been using, which is really the way you want to start. So here, if I go ahead and hit Library Importer, this actually opens up my library importer tool for me. Now, this is nice because I can handle an entire library at a time. So all I need to do here is actually just go ahead, hit plus library, and it will then pull up in my library here. This actually works with integrated libraries. Let's show you here. Let me bring this back in. So this actually works here with integrated libraries, schematic libs, PCB libs, DB libs. svndblibs. Okay, so it works with just about any format of library you may have. So here I have an integrated library from that DBI level shifter that we had earlier. So all I need to do here is just go ahead and hit open. And what will happen here is this will load up this library and then analyze it. It will actually analyze the default designators, and it will identify what type of component I'm working with here. So it actually now sees you see resistors, and with that, it then knows where to put these, right? So it's actually identified the folder that these components are going to go into. So this is really nice and really convenient. What I've got over here is I have some really nice areas. I've got some parameter mapping that I can do on the libraries. Now, look at it this way. I'm now working with two libraries. The one I'm bringing in my master library, which would be my A365, and those parameters may not match exactly. So what you can do here is you can actually map those to each of the parameters, map them and to the two libraries. Okay. Down here is some part choice mapping. You can simply add in then how your part choices are mapped out. And then the really important part of the library migrator is the import checks. Now, this is really nice because what you'll be able to do is clean up your library before you do the migration. All right, so this is really, really nice. I find that a lot of times individuals have an issue. What they want to do is they want to clean up the library before they migrate it. Okay, but you really have to have a finish line there. All right, so if you're going to do that, definitely have a finish line that it's not an ongoing thing. All right. The polishing or the cleanup or QC on the library is a constant process. So you've basically you need to kind of draw a line and say, okay, at this point, we're going to go ahead and move the libraries in. Or the other option is go ahead, do your library import, and then clean it up on the other side. Okay, but what happens here is these little import checks will actually be a big benefit for you to kind of clean up the library in a pretty nice way. So I'm going to go ahead and run these checks here by hitting validate. And as you can see, it actually flags components. And if I look at this one, for example, right here, all this is a warning for me that says that I've already got this footprint in my library. So here it's actually identified the same geometry on that component. So this is more just telling me that it's not going to be bringing in this footprint. It's already available. Same problem here on this capacitor here. Now down here, we've actually got a couple issues. We got number one is the same geometry on a footprint. So it's not going to bring in this footprint once again. Also, the component type is undefined. So if I look at component type here, I can actually say, yeah, that's not been defined yet. So here I'm going to hit connectors, and that will now actually, that issue will actually fall off. Now, if you're working with multiple libraries, you're probably going to have the issue with duplicate components. Now, that is actually a check that is done here. Component is duplicated by parameter or duplicated by part choice. Now, what this will do is actually tell you that this component is duplicated. You already have it in your A365 library. And what you should do to solve that is simply right-click and say exclude from the importer. So this will actually drop this onto a secondary list and it's ignored, okay? So that would be the solution for that issue there. So I'm going to hit validate. I'm going to have these warnings, still these few warnings here about my models. But from here, I'm just going to go ahead and hit import, all right? So it's just going to run this. And what will happen here is actually we'll bring in all of the components, their features. A component will have two sides. We'll have the information and the model side. It will bring in all the models and all the different details of these components. So as you can see, it's actually now completed that process. It says imported 8 components, 11 models. I could open this log, but I won't do that here. So we're actually now done with the library importer. If I go ahead and close this, I can go ahead and back into my library here, and let's go in. It's a top here. Let's do a search on Molex. All right. I want to look at all my Molex connectors in my library, my entire library. There we go. We got these 2 right here that just got migrated. I can easily go ahead now and place those into my design. So like that. Okay. So I can now respond back to Fred. That's done, and it's a resolved issue. So really nice, a collaboration tool, especially with the commenting, the libraries, and the combination of all that. If you do need to, you can use the manufacturing parts search in the way of moving those components into your workspace, or creating a brand new component that will be brought into your A365 platform, and working then also with your library importer to import entire libraries. All right, so really, really nice, convenient platform to use. All right. So here, I'm not going to wire up here or do anything like that, but let me just go ahead and annotate this, because I want to go ahead and annotate this and push this into my PCB design here now. Keep in mind, you can also then place comments in the PCB side or the 3D view. Okay, so this is really convenient. So here I can actually see now I'm on the PCB. I can work with the components I've got here. Let's throw a couple of these on the bottom just for fun. Here I would then do my layer stack, my layer stack, of course, my board shape and different things like that, which it would really be easy to do. So if, let's say I just came in here and said, something like this, for example. Whoops, let's do that last line here. Okay, so here I can actually then create a really convenient board shape just by setting my board shape by selected objects. There we go. I can now have a nice little board. There we go. Now, I'm not going to do the routing or anything like that, but you get the idea there. So what happens here is, let's say I'm all done with my design. I'm ready to create my fabrication package. I'm going to go ahead and save the server here. And there we go. It's going to be uploaded. And look at the Git repository, by the way, as your head copy. So this here is my local copy I'm working with. So now I've updated the head copy in my version control. So here I can actually now go ahead and I'm going to run the project releaser. Now, what's nice about this is sort of an automated way of creating your output job files. If you're right now have a single file to create your outputs, I would recommend for you to break those up, and one side is fabrication, the other side is assembly. So here I can come down to options, and I can connect these output job files up to what I want to do. So here I want to say fabrication and assembly and say, okay, there is some other settings here. I don't have time to get into, but I'm just simply going to go okay here, set up my output job files, attach them to the sources I want to, or outputs I want to do. So here we go ahead. I'm going to go say, let's create my fab and assembly, and I'm going to hit prepare. All right. Now what this will do is actually do a final snapshot of my design. So it's going to say create. I'm going to create these 3 items. It's going to save and commit, and there we go. It's now going to update the Git repository here. And what will happen is the output job files will now be brought in and actually run. All right. So look at these outputs as sort of the engine that drives the output project releaser here. So here we go. We're in the assembly side. It's going to create my bill of materials, my pick and place. However you've got your output job files right now, you can run them through the project releaser. Okay. As long as you've got 2 of them. Okay. It doesn't handle a single file format like to do your outputs. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and hit release now. Let's say this is release A1 here, for example. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now these will now be uploaded into my A365. Okay, just going to give this a second, and when it is done, it actually will come back and give me my links right there. Also give me a data report on exactly what has happened now, what files were created, all the different details. Okay. So let's go over to our workspace here, and let's see exactly what has happened here in the last, few minutes with creating this project. Okay, so here we have our projects, and we can actually go ahead into this MCU project here. And so what we have is our completed schematic. We have our PCB side. We can look at both of that. Let's say we just want to look at our top layer or bottom layer. That's fine. So we can also then see the 3D view of the board itself, okay? And we then see also then the BOM, okay? So right up here. Now over here, I want to jump down to the history here and show you what has happened here. Now, from 25 minutes ago, when we first created this project, this actually became the starting point. And at each time I saved and committed this to the version control, it gave me a new panel here and then did a compare to the previous time. Okay, so now this is your release that has occurred with your project releaser. Now, if I had any MCAD collaboration that was involved in this project at this time, it would also show up in this history. So this is really convenient. This actually captures every step of my design process of what has happened, what components, what structure differences, changes, whatever has occurred in the design itself. Now, right up here then is my release that I now have available. Now, what's nice about this, go back here, I'm sorry, go back, I can actually now work with this release by sending it to my manufacturer directly from my A365, okay? So I can, first off, configure the files that I wish to send them, say fab and assembly here, that's fine, and say send, and all I need to do is drop their email in here and send these files, okay? So now this is nice because there's no limitations on file sizes or anything like that. It's all consolidated right here in the A365 platform. And as you're going to see, you now have actually a time-stamped file location here of who I sent these files to, when, and all the different details. Now I can actually go ahead and open these files here and show you this is actually what the fabricator would see. If he opened these files, he would first off see a great overview of the project he's going to be doing. So he has the board shape, the layer stack, the topology, the trace width, all that information has been captured from the design and presented here for this overview look at the PCB design, all right? That's all right here. So you can see now the 2D, the 3D, and the stack up of the design itself. Now, right below there, then, we have the fabrication information. Now, what's nice is he can also then select the different layers he wants to look at, different things like that. He can also come up here and place comments in the design, in the Gerbers themselves. So he can actually come up here and say, place comment, and say, you know, you got wrong pin spacing. Okay. That's something you want to hear at this point of your design, right? But let's say he can now respond back to you directly in the Gerber. So this is nice because we've now continued the conversation as the project develops after you're supposedly done with it, right? The project, now the communications continue with your fabrication house and your assembly house, okay? Right below there then is your assembly data right here, your 2D, your 3D view of the board, and then finally your bill of materials, okay? Now, right below here then is the actual file that was created from the output job files right here, your Gerbers, your NC drills, and so on, all right? So I want to show you where you can find more information regarding Altium 365. If you go into the platform, you can see right down here, first off, your forum area. This is a really convenient area. There's a lot of power users in here, developers all the time. So it's a really nice place to read questions that have been asked before or present new questions to the developers. Also, you have, get back to the location here one moment. Sorry about that. But you also then have in the platform your documentation area that you can take your deep dive and study the Altium 365 platform right here. You also then have, sorry, I'm down, bring this down here a little bit. You also then have the free training available right here. So this is really nice because this is where you can go through the articles, video training, also register for upcoming webinars, different things like that, okay? So really, really convenient. You also then have the live chat area. Now, this is really nice if you have a particular problem or something like that that you need to chat with a real live person with regarding that issue. This is the place to do that. You can also put in support tickets, and you can also then tap into the knowledge base here documentation center again, Altium forums, and also then you have the Altium Academy. Now this is really nice because if you're not a part of the YouTube channel Altium Academy, this is really, really a convenient place and location to not just pick up, watch videos or training on A365, but on Altium overall. We've also uploaded a lot of our Altium live presentations and different things like that in this Altium Academy. So check this out. It's a really, really phenomenal area. So what I would like to do is I would first like to thank you for watching this presentation. I hope that you found it helpful. And I hope to see you in the future presentations and to work with Altium and to be able to work. I hope that you'll take the opportunity to get into A365 and work with it and use it, and that you will find that your team will benefit in a huge way by using this collaboration tool and the central location for all your design resources and projects and such. So thank you very much. I thank you for your time today, and have a great rest of your day. Bye now.